Hey guys, Average Youth Minister here. Today I'm going to tell you how to write your own creative object lessons to help your audience stay engaged with your talk and help apply the truths that you're teaching to their lives. Let's go. Now, when I say an object lesson, I mean just something creative, something other than just talking that gets your point home to your students. And I really think that there are three big ideas of how and why we use them. All right, reason number one that I think to use object lessons is probably the most obvious, and that's to drive home a point. You've made a really great, amazing point, and you want to make sure that students remember it. So you use an object lesson to drive home this point. All right, so I'm standing here at my junk closet, my youth closet. It's kind of where I store everything, all my games and such. And to tell you about the second big reasons why you should have object lessons. And this one might hurt your pride a little bit, but honestly, your audience has a short attention span, and you're not always going to be able to keep their attention just with your words. And so one of the big reasons why I use object lessons is just to break up the monotony of a lesson. Now, I will try to make sure that these lessons have something to do with the talk that we're doing, but honestly, a lot of times the activities are just to get students up and moving and involved for a moment to kind of break up the whole flow of me talking, and they get less and less focused. You do an object lesson so that people will get engaged in the lesson again. The third really great reason to use object lessons is to give a touch point for your different types of learners. Now, if you've done any kind of learning about talking or teaching or those kind of things before, you've heard about these different types of learners. There's kinesiology, I don't even know if that's a word, and auditory, I don't know all the words, but I do know this. Some people remember things better if they have something to touch. Some people remember things better if they have a way to speak and answer questions. Some people remember things better if it's in a song or if maybe they get to create or draw. And so one of the reasons why I do object lessons is to think about creating something for all of these different types of people. They're not happening in every lesson. I don't do something in each time for each type. But over the course of, say, a month, I want to make sure that I have done at least one thing for every different type. So I think those are three reasons why you need to have object lessons. You need to have object lessons because Jesus did it, but you need to have object lessons because they drive home your point. You need to have object lessons because it breaks up the lesson and helps people to stay engaged a little bit better. And you need to have object lessons so that you engage all three different types of learners. So now let's go and let's look at 5 quick tips about how you can create your own wonderfully awesome object lessons. The first tip is this: you need to practice. Now, I know that's not the easiest, greatest tip in the world. You're hoping to have something that would just really blow your mind. But the first tip really is that you need to practice. And by practice, I mean you need to give yourself a mission to come up with 5 object lessons every day. Or maybe you say, I'm going to go to Walmart and I'm going to walk around and do nothing but come up with object lessons. Here's a couple that I found just in my office. This has been in my office forever. It came from the movie. You bought it and you got popcorn in the thing. But anyway, and so I was looking around my office trying to think of just practicing object lessons. And I thought about this. He doesn't have anything in his head. And so it would be really neat. You bring him on stage, you open it up, and you write down whatever it is. You say, you need to put good things in your mind so that you can, whatever your mind thinks you do. And so you write down good things to put in your mind. Bible study, and you put it in his head, or you write, focus on God, and you put it in his head, whatever. And so then you say, you have all these things, and it's important to stuff your brain with those. That was something that was sitting around in my office. And you walk around and you just practice. You pick up something and say, well, what truth from the Bible can I teach using this? So my second big tip for creating your own amazing object lessons is to just lean into the cheese factor. Now, I know you want to have something that's amazing and memorable and you can tell your friends about and you can write about it on your blog and it's this great, will change the world with your truth. But honestly, most of the time, they're just going to be cheesy. So lean into the cheese factor. Don't be afraid of the fact that they're going to be silly. Silly is memorable. One of the things I did one time, this is mustard here, I was talking about how in Ephesians, he talked about God has lavished his grace on us. And so I gave, there were 2 hot dogs, cooked hot dogs there on a bun, and I brought 2 students up and I said, okay, now this is a little mustard. I sprayed a little mustard on their hot dog. I said, now this is enough mustard. And then I went, this is a lot of mustard. And then I just covered the whole thing with mustard. And I said, now this is lavished. And I lavished mustard on top of the hot dog. And then I had the two people, of course, try to eat it because that's half the fun. And then because I'm a youth pastor, I said they had to eat it without using their hands. Again, it was silly. The whole idea is not a very, I'm saying theologically great idea, you're putting mustard on a hot dog. But seriously, I had one of those kids who was an 8th grader when they ate the hot dog, graduated. He said, do you remember that time that we were talking about God's grace and how it was lavished on us and you made us eat those hot dogs? She may have said it actually in the reverse. She may have said, remember the time that you made us eat those hot dogs because we were talking about lavished? And so that idea stuck with it because silly is memorable. All right, tip number 3, games are great. Games involve everybody in your group, they get everybody up and moving, and there are some really great games that teach a lot of really great points. I've got my chairs in a circle here because I love circle games. Probably my favorite game is the game I Never, where someone in the middle says something they've never done and some people on the outside tell things they have done. We just use that to talk about how some of the things people have never done is tell their friends about Jesus, and we need to change that. And so we use it, we play it quite often, and sometimes it just breaks down barriers, and sometimes it's part of your lesson. But games are an amazing way to get people to do things they normally wouldn't do, to get people involved in ways they normally wouldn't get involved, and it's also a way to get people interacting with people that they don't normally interact with. And so games are a great way to bring your youth group together, or your student group, or your children's group, or whatever together, as well as to reinforce the things that you're teaching about. So go look up some really great games and use them, incorporate them, and then come up with your own points for them. Tip number 4 is object lessons are important, so don't be afraid to go big. This is an object lesson that our pastor used in Big Church. You see, he made it so big that it doesn't actually even fit in the room that we store it in. Normally it's laying down. I just picked it up for you guys. But object lessons are important, so don't be afraid to go big. Object lessons are worth your time. They are worth your resources. They are worth spending time getting ready. A lot of times people think that the object lessons are just kind of the throwaway things at the end, but honestly, it's the object lessons that you teach that people are going to remember. So take time to make them good. That leads us to number 5. Evaluate the importance of the object lesson before you invest in it. Now, I know I just said go big, and you should go big, and object lessons are important and valuable. But before you put too much time or talent or especially resources into something, make sure that it's actually what you want to say and that it is as valuable as what you're putting into it. But object lessons are valuable, but they're not the most valuable. So figure out where you're spending your resources, where you're spending your time, and evaluate the importance that this object lesson is going to have with how much time you're spending on it. For instance, a game that's kind of a throwaway thing that nobody's really going to remember, that doesn't have a whole lot to do with your lesson, you're just doing it to get people active, is probably not a good way to spend a lot of money and resources. But something that really drives home the point, like when we were talking about earlier, those little things where you molded the clay and they got to take it home, that took a lot of time to 3D print all of those, but it was worth it because it was driving home the point. I evaluated how much it was worth, and that's how much effort I put into it. As you can see, object lessons are really important no matter who you're teaching. And they're really not that hard to create. You just kind of follow these 5 steps. You practice a lot, just do them over and over and over again. You lean into the cheese factor. Don't worry if it's silly. Silly is memorable. Play games. Games are great and they are worth it. Go big. It's important to have a good object lesson, so don't be afraid to invest resources in it. But at the same time, the last thing is evaluate and see just really how much it is worth before investing too much time down that road. If you do those things, and if you plan your lessons early enough, I think you can come up with some really amazing object lessons. Let me know in the comments some of the ways that you have prepped object lessons, maybe a really great object lesson you used in the past. Let us know about that. Also, we'd love to just hear about any other things you got going on. Be sure to subscribe here. This is the first of what I hope are a bunch of these how-to videos. Thanks for taking the time to watch through to the end, and I will see you the next time I get an idea of things I want to create. Thanks.